Hi guys, this is Tim Richardson. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to have some great learning. Brought in a couple experts. One of them's just getting logged in, and then I'll introduce those two guys to you here in just a second. While we're doing that, please find the chat area over on the side. This is the area where you're going to ask questions throughout our time together, and the goal is to stump these guys. All right, so no, not really, but they have some good wisdom for us on buying and big mistakes they've been seeing from different customers that they've been working with, and some of the things that they've heard about and seen that are concerning, and want to make sure that you guys don't make the same mistakes. So in the chat area, though, go ahead and find that area. For right now, just type in your city that you guys are watching from. It'll be fun to give some shout outs while we get everybody logged in here and get rolling. So let's see here. So if everybody can hear me, what we're going to do too is we're going to record this workshop webinar and send it to you via email. So right at the end of this, we will have about 2 hours after, you'll get an email that has a link to this webinar. So don't worry about getting every aspect of this written down. Greetings out to Stephen in Bartlett, Illinois. Thanks for joining us, too. Greg in Davenport. Tim in Oklahoma City. Thanks for joining us. We have Susan in Brandon, Florida. John out in California. So very cool. And thanks, Dustin. Good to see you. Yep. So we have Dustin, Bray on the left side of your screen there. And we have in the middle, we have Solomon Richardson. Thank you guys for taking time out of your day helping folks with RVs, RV Wholesalers. Appreciate it. So we have to be here. Yeah. So greetings to Gary out in, is that Gary Obey in Clay, Alabama. Cool. Glenn in Knoxville. Stephen in Nebraska. You guys from all over the place. Well, I appreciate you guys, the fact that you're looking to buy an RV or in the market and taking the time to get educated. And hopefully we can give you lots of tips and tricks here. So let's jump right in, guys. If you're all set, 5 big buying mistakes that you can avoid. The very first one that comes to mind is not asking for the out the door price. Man, today I've been seeing some interesting things happening, and why don't you go ahead and explain what that is, Dustin, and why we should deal with that before, before you, that's what I've seen is these guys, they get to the end of, they come to pick up their RV and things have changed. There's a big surprise that happens, and that's not a good surprise. And that's why I want to make sure our friends here are protected and they know what to expect when it comes time to make that final signature and that final payment, and or start the process when they pick up their RV. So
basically what the out-the-door price is the actual price that you're paying for the unit. That's all fees, all taxes, title, fee, documentation, factory freight, everything included, right? A unit price on its own isn't as useful as knowing the out-the-door price. It's why, say you'll have a dealer advertising a rock bottom price on a unit, and then when you get to the end of the deal, you realize that the difference, like let's say you had 2 units that were the exact same and somebody was advertising it for much less, and they were both very like near to each other physically. And you can assume that some of that's going to be made up for in fees, right? So the goal is for you to be able to, as a customer, compare apples to apples. You need your out the door price as quickly as you can get it from a dealer, so that you have a shot at at comparing, whether it's an identical floor plan or 2 brands that are very, very similar with similar floor plans and amenities. You want that out the door price so that you can actually make a comparison based on a price. And then we'll get into why, or the ways that can be hidden or altered later on. But I would say that That's the direct question that you need to ask as you're dealing with a sales consultant is, what is my out the door price on this unit as is, right? Because that'll also depend heavily on options on the unit, right? You can't really compare two different features. Like, we've got a really good example on our lot, and that is a Wildwood FSX, right? So you've got two different Wildwood FSXs at two very different prices. Well, they can swing drastically on the options and upgrades that you would choose on that one. So you need the exact options and out the door price so that you can compare unit to unit to unit.
Yeah, because I mean, in this world, I've noticed that there's hundreds of models, but if you start whittling it down, ends up being these are the same exact trailers, same floor plans. They just have different model names, or even the same factories will crank out two different brands. One that sells to a certain amount of dealers, and then say in Ohio there's 3 dealers for Rockwood. Well, in Ohio there's also 3 dealers for, what's the other name?
Flagstaff, I think.
Flagstaff, yeah, something like that. So it's the same exact trailer, made in the same factory, the same guys, and the trailers have different models and names, but they all come out of the same factory. So that happens in all the factories pretty much for different, like if it's a big chain, they may want their own name, so you can't compare that chain to price-wise and stuff. So it makes it tricky. So really, the key is looking at the floor plan, figuring out what you need floor plan-wise, and then, as you were saying, Dustin, really making sure you know what that out the door price is, so so that you're not caught off guard with hidden fees. And so that's I really want to have Solomon start talking about that hidden fee idea. Like what's kind of a common hidden fee that's been really that you're seeing come across that people have been getting burned with, or just not being surprised with, I guess is probably a better word, when they go to finish up their sale?
Yeah, for probably the most expensive one, or definitely one of the biggest ones, is the PDI, which you can see in the background there.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So that's going to be the pre-delivery inspection. So before you get your RV, this is something that should be done automatically. Like this is so this is effectively when a dealer receives the unit from the factory. So it's shipped in. Usually just 1, maybe 2 units at a time if they're really tiny, and then they inspect them. So in these, a lot of the factories will do their own inspections. It kind of depends on the manufacturer how detailed that is. But once it gets to the lot, they're going to inspect that. So they're going to make sure that it's all cleaned out, that there's no sawdust in your sinks or on the floor, that there's no dirt or anything tracked in it from the people that were in it from the factory that was built. They're going to check the roof. I know, like at RV's Wholesalers, we do over 100-point check where we flood the roofs. We go point by point through everything with a huge checklist.
Yeah, I've been there when I've been walking by an RV and get water on my shoulder, and I look up and there's guys up there with the hose, spraying down the roof and making sure water doesn't go through the air conditioner and all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely something you want to have done on your RV, and you would expect the dealership to make sure that it's there ready for you. It should be brand new from the manufacturer, everything working. So
exactly, yeah. You want everything to be tested. You want to make sure that water's run through the pipes, that the power is working, that the gas is hooked up and goes. And so that's what that test is going to be for. What a lot of people don't expect is when they show up and they go to pick up their RV and they get charged $1,500 for that, on top of what they already agreed to as the price before. And then some dealers will go so far as to make them feel bad about it. So you get there, it's like, hey, you guys wanted us to clean this, right? You wanted us to go through and do these checks. You didn't want to get an RV without these things, but you're selling that product. You're not going to give them a faulty product. You're going to inspect it and make sure it's clean and do all that stuff. That's part of doing business. Like, you just need to take care of the product that you're selling. So it's important that it's done. You need to be careful that you know what you're paying for it. And sometimes even comparing apples, like if you know the out the door prices, if their unit price is lower and then they have a PDI, you might be able to find ones where even with that fee, it's similar, but just be really careful about that because they might just be trying to make up a lot of that in the PDI.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks. Another one. Actually, you know what, guys? I have a list back here of 4 or 5 different things. The next one is factory transport, and I'll have Dustin talk about that in a second. But I put together this list on a handout. So I'm going to go ahead and toss that up to you guys right now. So here we go. So you guys can download that when you get a second during the webinar here. And that has it all spelled out for you, the 5 different hidden fees that we've been seeing. Some of them, I'm sure there's probably creative people coming up with others, but these are some of the ones you want to make sure you ask about and make sure it's not hidden if you know about it up front and you're okay with it and it matches, it fits into the price and budget that you're working with, and that's fine. But we just want to make sure you guys aren't getting caught off guard on that. So.
And that's really important to note on the first 2 that we cover, right? A PDI is pretty much essential to have done. Not everybody charges for them, right? Because the way we look at it is it's something we would do if we were bringing in a brand new stock unit. We don't have a choice. It has to be part of our process. So why would we pass that charge on to a customer who's buying one, a custom order from us? So, but it's still going to be done. That goes same thing for factory freight. So probably I would say this is where a lot of people get confused with factory freight. Factory freight is not a delivery charge, and it's not the same thing as delivery charge. It is what you pay for the unit to come to the dealer from a manufacturer, right? There's no such thing as buying direct from a manufacturer. The closest you're going to get is wholesale product. But why I make that differentiation is that you pay factory freight on almost every good that you pay for, okay? Now, why we consider it important to list as something that you're paying for is because it's not going to be the way it would if you were buying a loaf of bread or a box of tissues at Walmart, right? When you go to a store there, you're going to pay something between 2 and 6 cents in factory freight and fuel surcharge for each product that you buy. You don't really notice it. They're not going to list that in a breakdown when you get your receipt of 100 items at Walmart, because it might add up at the end of the day to $1.20 that you've paid on everything in your shopping cart. The difference here is that an RV has to be transported single item one at a time and towed usually by a specialized vehicle, depending on the size of the RV. And because of that, the cost of moving them from manufacturer to dealership or wholesaler is extremely price prohibitive, right? It can be very expensive. Now, there's nothing wrong with having factory freight. That's part of the business model. You have to account for that as a dealer. If you don't account for that, you're giving away fistfuls of money of your own profit to sell RVs, right? What we're talking about is whether or not they're explaining it to you. So it's very important that is listed as part. Like when we go back to the out the door price, the problem that we've run into is that's not included when they're going over options and pricing. It's come time to sign financing paperwork. It's come time to finalize your deal, put money down, that now you're being told about the factory freight charge, okay? Factory freight can be explained very simply as distance from dealership to manufacturer. The closer you are to where the manufacturers are, the less money you're going to spend in factory freight.
And they're pretty much all in the Elkhart, Indiana. Right. If you put that into your maps, that's kind of the epicenter. There's Millersburg, Goshen, Elkhart. Mm-hmm. Those 3 are pretty much, in fact, I was just there in the last 2 months. I've visited, I think, 5 factories and got to go through all of them. And they're all just kind of clumped together right there. And right. So that's where you can look.
And that's no indictment of, say, a local dealer if you lived in Oregon or Colorado to say that their price would be more expensive than a dealership closer to the manufacturer. It almost has to be. Yeah. They cannot sell it for the same price that dealer in Indiana could. They can't. They would lose money on every deal. They wouldn't make their profit. So, again, these are not all of these things that we're going to go over in the list are things that are hidden as a way to try to take your money. Some of them are absolutely necessary and required as part of the business to continue to keep their doors open, but it's whether or not they are explained up front and given to you clear as day. That's where we draw the line, is you have to know about them when you're going to pay for your unit. When you ask for that out-the-door price, it needs to be listed, right?
Yeah. So if they were in Oregon, and say you did the math and it's 2,000 miles from Elkhart to Oregon,
right?
And it's what would you say, between $1 to $2? I mean, you should never see more than $2, but average $1.50 to, somewhere.
And I've even looked into this a little bit too. So $1.50 to $2 for factory freight is pretty reasonable. Usually a little bit more for custom delivery routes, because that usually requires hiring third party. And so for their insurance and everything, it's going to be a little bit more expensive for delivery as opposed to factory freight. But factory freight is usually an agreed upon rate. So with the factory, right? So they're paying a flat rate on every unit shipped, and that's how it should be. That's not always the case either. We've seen we've seen almost $3 a mile for factory freight, and when they're at that point, that's not an agreed upon rate. Now they're making back profit on a fee that they should just be covering themselves on.
Yeah. So don't be afraid to ask questions. I mean, if they're being honest with you, they're not going to be afraid to tell you and be straight up with you. Like, hey, this $2,000 is how we got it from here to here. I mean, and they need to be upfront with you. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask. That's why we want to get you equipped here. So I just asked a poll out there, how many of this will be your first time purchasing an RV? So it looks like about 75% of you are taking the exploring and getting ready to get into camping, and it's a perfect time to do it, especially with air travel being, I was on an airplane just a few weeks ago, and I was sitting in the middle seat and I had two people on each side. I was like, wait, isn't this social distancing supposed to be happening here on the airplanes? But apparently not, in hotels. And camping is an awesome way to be able to avoid that and still have fun and enjoy the family and outdoors. And so I'm proud of you guys. So thanks for taking time to fill out that poll. And while we're talking about pricing, I know that's a huge deal for people. It's like, I just want to get a really good price. And then can you, Dustin, do you mind talking about MSRP? Because people are, I went to one big giant chain yesterday and was looking. I got an email from them, and I was looking at their pricing, and it had the MSRP price, and then it had, had an X through it, and here's our price and all that. So where are we at with that?
The best way to explain MSRP is as the made-up fairy tale number where you're going to earn enough commission, or not commission, but margin on each one to be profitable, right? So it's not. So you're saying it's not really it's not really coming from the manufacturer. It's just made up by that dealership. Is that what you're saying? Correct. So I guess the best way to explain MSRP is a lot of it is informed by NADA, and NADA is both a very reliable source for pricing and also but still deals in some MSRP. Okay. So for a lot of people out there, a lot of smaller dealerships, right? Their transactions are based on each individual unit, and they're going to build in enough margin to, one, make sure that they're covering their costs, two, paying their employees, keeping the lights on and all those things, making profit at the bottom line, and finally have enough in there that they can give discounts to sweeten the deal, right? It's part of a sales tactic to give something for nothing, right? If somebody's able to give you a 20 or 30% discount off of a unit, just flat out, right? Like as soon as you start talking to them, they say, yeah, we can give you 20% off of that. That means they've built that in to start with. Okay. I've seen it in a million different industries. Usually where you have higher income concentrations. So we're in Ohio. If you go to Columbus and you shop for the same recliner in Columbus versus Logan County, Ohio, there's probably a 50% price increase in Columbus because they know that they can haggle just a little bit and get a little bit more out of each transaction. Okay. It's a game. It's MSRP pricing is a game. Okay. Like good pricing, the way we look at it is using high and low book on a unit. If you were buying used, is using high and low book values. Okay. It's the same way we would price when we went to, let's say, like when we use our wholesale pricing, there's no game being played. Usually wholesalers are going to give you a sale price, like their rock bottom price to start. So you're looking at volume versus, we call it home run hitting. You're trying to make your home run profit off of one. So that's MSRP pricing sort of in a nutshell. It's using percentages to build in enough overhead.
Yeah, with that, like I was talking to a lady earlier today from Florida, and she was looking at actually one of the Wildwood FSXs that we were talking about a little bit earlier. And the price, they're just selling it straight at MSRP there, which is like 25,000. And when I heard that, I was like, what? And then they're not dropping. They're not even budging on those. Whereas I got her out the door price and it was like $8,000 less. And then the other thing with factory freight is like, if you're really budget conscious and you're willing to drive, if you go within a couple states of Indiana, you're going to get better pricing. Because if you're out west, you're going to save thousands of dollars. And especially if you're a motorhome buyer, if you can fly out there, if you already have your motorhome ordered, you can fly out to the dealership and then just drive it back, and you're only doing one way. So there's a lot of ways to save that you might not be told.
And I think the biggest thing when we're talking about MSRP pricing is when you look at high and low book values of RVs, even cars, right? Those are the real, like, let's say you were to get it appraised or estimated at, if you were trying to get rid of it, it's the same way the pricing should work when you're trying to buy it. So MSRP pricing is a lot more, can be a lot more, well, I want to say, dependent on demand. So specifically in this this year's market, there's, I think, estimated to be 250,000 RV transactions this year in the United States alone. With that said, that's a huge increase in terms of demand. You're going to see a lot more MSRP price increases where they know that they have, it's a seller's market, right? So people want to buy them, so we can mess with the price and put it up higher, especially for those units where they're available, because the demand is so high and you're not waiting on a unit. So I'd be really cautious for people who are looking for something that they can take home right away. There's a couple reasons that they're there. Either the price is way off where it should be and they're using MSRP pricing, or there's something wrong with the unit and it's not being disclosed. Those are two ways that you're going to have available units. Be careful on both, okay? When you're doing your homework, and that's another thing I firmly recommend customers look at, really start to understand what the values are that they're paying and shop, right? Make sure that you're informed by the time you go and look at RVs.
That's good. Yeah, no, I was, when I was at those factories, at least 3 of the manufacturer reps brought that up to me, and they're like, Tim, I'm really concerned because we're seeing a lot of these dealers just charging these prices because they can, and like you said, closer to MSRP. And the factories really don't give that upper price. They just give a MAP price, which is the minimum advertised price that they're allowed. Like they say, RV wholesalers, you are not allowed to put this RV on the website and show it for any lower than this price. And they give you a number, say $16,000 or whatever. And then it's the responsibility of each dealership to make sure they do not go below that, or they could jeopardize their agreement with with that manufacturer.
At least advertising that price.
Yeah, they can. Yeah,
they can sell it lower than that, but they can't advertise it.
And that's why, like on RV Wholesalers, for example, you guys have that thing where they'll text. Once they have your contact information, they're allowed. RV Wholesalers, for example, is allowed to send you a text with the price or an email. That's kind of how I know your website works, where and people are always like, well, why can't I just see all the prices? But that's
not allowed.
That's why, because we want to still get too low.
Right. So anyways, John asked, does PDI apply to a used RV?
From a dealership, yeah, they should still be doing an inspection on it. They need to make sure that everything works. It gets a little trickier when you're buying used from someone else that's not a dealer. When you're buying from an individual, what I recommend for people to do there, if they can find an RV like just service center that's not a dealership near them, and sometimes they will look at them for free, or you can pay one of them to come out and look at it for $50, $100, whatever it is, to get a better idea of what you're.
That's a good idea. Can you keep talking, Solomon, about not getting the most for your trade-in? That's kind of my second big mistake that people are making. And there's a number of people here that either have a trade-in, or the other thing is, sometimes you overthink getting into the first RV, and actually. And I know you probably get overwhelmed. There's so many options and different things that you have to learn. And you know what? When at the end of the day, you get something it's just like a starter home. It's like a starter RV. It don't have to have this thing perfectly for the rest of your life. Just get what you need to keep your keep the priority, and that being camping, or if it's your family camping, or whatever it is your goal is for having an RV and being able to experience, whether it's going out west to see sights, or going to campgrounds with your family, or whatever that goal is. Don't worry about like, oh, I have to have one that's going to last me 20 years. Don't be afraid, like maybe in 1 year the market's so hot with used and everything, you can get your money back, switch into a bigger one if you realize, oh man, we just need an extra bunkhouse or bunk room or trailer, or different things. So it's I just want to encourage you not to get too hung up on trying to figure it all out the first time. So those keep talking about trade-in. So what do you recommend?
Well, I mean, going off what you were just saying, yeah, it's with the market where it's at right now, it's not hard to switch out after a year or two, especially if you find that you need a little more space. I think that's one of the biggest things that the smaller families go into it, realizing that after a bit, they're like, well, maybe I could use another 5 feet, another 10 feet.
What, didn't you just have that today, Tom?
Yeah.
What did you just tell me?
There was a lady that got a 2019, and it just was not quite big enough. They had another kid. It's just their kids take up more space than they anticipated in one, and they just want a little bit more distance. So I understand. But yeah, so for trade-ins, what we recommend, and this is exactly what I told her too, is that with the market as hot as it is right now, we offer low book because we're going to sell at low to mid book price, because we're a wholesaler. We're trying to move them quickly. We don't the used units we have don't stay on our lot long because we price them really low, and we price them to sell. Like right now, I think we have 2 used units, and we have a travel trailer and a fifth wheel. Maybe I know at least the one's a fifth wheel. But yeah, so if you can sell it yourself and you're comfortable doing that, I highly recommend it, because you're going to get thousands more dollars.
What's a good place to list it?
So we recommend, there's Facebook Marketplace, which can be good. Just make sure that you do the transaction in a safe location. You've got Craigslist is another really good one, and then RV Trader obviously is the big kind of like eBay of RVs. So any of those three, you're going to be pretty well off. If you can, just list it on all of them, and then also be willing to expand your search. I think a lot of people think like, well, they sell local, but people are willing to travel for RVs. They will come 1, 2, 3, 5, 7 states away to pick up an RV. I mean, we see this all the time. If we get a unit that people are looking, like if you're looking for a specific unit, you find the one that you love and you want to get it, you will travel for it. People will travel for it. So we get people that drive from California, that drive from Washington, drive from Florida, because they find the one unit they want at the price that just blows them away, and they drive for it. So like people will drive for you.
Oh, you guys, speaking of that, you guys have sold, you probably sell more RVs around the nation than you do actually in Ohio, where you're centrally located, or Texas.
I started talking to a guy from Columbus, Ohio, actually the other day, and I was thinking last night. I was like, I've only worked with a handful of people from Ohio. Almost everyone I call is out of state. It's like, this is weird.
Yeah, because even Alaska, Hawaii, have you had? Yeah,
spoke to a lady from Hawaii last week.
Really? So that's pretty cool. So let's move on to another big buying mistake people make, and that is this one here: not understanding terms on RV financing. I know financing is a big, usually has a lot of questions, and like how do we save money in that area, and how do we make sure we don't get ripped off or taken advantage of during that? So let's. In fact, I have Dallas Henry. We're going to see if we can pull him into this. And he's our finance manager at RV Wholesalers here. And let me see if we can have him just explain terms, because they're different than home terms. So let's see. Dallas, maybe we can't get him on here today. No. Let's see. Okay, here. we got? Dallas?
Hey guys, Dallas Henry here. I'm going to talk to you guys today a little bit about financing an RV, a couple of the tips, tricks, things you might need to know. One big thing a lot of people don't know is when it comes to RVs is term. Term with recreational vehicles can be a lot longer than what most people are used to, especially financing cars and things like that. One big thing to remember is generally they'll go out to sometimes 20 years. I know it seems crazy to some people, but it's quite a long time. They want to make that payment really manageable. Now with recreational vehicles, if you have pretty good credit, longer term often means better rate, which just kind of flips everything on its head, whatever everybody really knows, again, when it comes to cars and mortgages and things like that. Because generally with those type of items, the shorter term generally means better rate. Okay, with RVs, remember, that's not always the case. If you got pretty good credit, normally the longer term, better rate. So that's one big thing to remember when you're going to finance a recreational vehicle. So keep that in mind as you go. Again, just to recap, longer term, good credit, typically a little bit better rate. So keep that in mind. Don't be afraid of that longer term. Even if you want to pay it off a little earlier, that's okay. They are simple interest loans. At least they should be. With all of our lenders, they are simple interest loans. So you can pay the loan off a little bit earlier. Okay, if you guys so choose you want to do it. And you can apply more money to principal. That'll have you paying at least a lot less interest over the term of that loan, whatever the term you decide it is. Once you lock in a deal with a bank or lock in a deal with a dealer, you can change how fast you pay it off. You can change how much money you throw towards the interest and the principal and things like that. One thing you can't change is the rate. So remember that. You always want to get the best rate, and a lot of times that is longer term. Okay. Another thing to remember is don't ever tie your recreational vehicle loan to your house. A lot of people think, hey, really good rates with my home equity loan, put a lot of work into this house, I want to use that equity. Not a real good, wise idea. I'm not a financial analyst by any stretch of the imagination, but what I will tell you is when the proverbial hits the fan, and things happen. As so many people know in 2020, there's a lot of things that have happened this year that no one expected to happen. One thing that can happen is you can lose your job. You can have time off, things that you might not be getting the money you thought you were getting. So in that situation, the last thing you want to have happen is you not be able to make your RV payment and that be tied to your house, because now if something happens, they're not coming to just get your RV, they're coming to get the house now too. So don't risk your family, don't risk your livelihood, don't risk your finances by doing something like that. It's something to really remember.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. I like that idea of since you get your best rate with the longer terms, get a longer term and then purpose to pay it off in 5 years, for example. Mm-hmm. And it seems like that. I like that where if you were to get a 5-year term and pay it off in 5 years, you'd end up paying a lot more than if you got a 20-year term, paid it off in 5 years. And then you always have that cushion too. But yeah, that's interesting. Anything else you guys want to add to that before we tell them this big dealer financing secret that I've been wanting to share with them, but haven't yet?
Well, let's get to that.
All right. Let me pop up the slide because this is something when I started helping out with webinars, I had no idea this was going on. And it's not just in the RV world. This is in the auto and any basically big loan that you need to do. But Solomon, can you break the news here? What's going on?
Yeah, I didn't really know that until I started here either. And that's that anytime that you're doing, like you were saying, a bigger loan, whether that be a car, even on like furniture and things, the dealers are getting money for those loans. So it's usually called a dealer reserve. It can otherwise be known as like a financial incentive, like a financial kickback. Essentially, it's like a financial.
That's what I call it. Kickback.
Yeah, I know you get.
It doesn't sound very nice, though. But I mean, it's legal, of course. But
exactly, yes, this is very legal. It's not something illegal. Because they're bringing business to financial institution. So
right, it's like a sales commission.
Exactly, it's like a sales
the dealers.
Yeah, and it's not. Some people think, well, okay, maybe a couple $100 here or there.
Yeah, that's it.
they make a little bit more off that. Cool. It makes sense because there's going to be the interest, and so the banks would pay out for that. But no, it's typically thousands of dollars. Even on the smaller RV, it's going to be like, I think minimum 1,500. So
wow,
these are going to be substantial, payoffs. And so one of the things that we do, and something that you can use in negotiations, is like we give a financing discount, because if we know we're getting paid $3,000 from the bank from this trailer, we can discount that trailer to you $3,000. We're still making our full money. We're still making a profit while giving you guys $3,000 more in savings. And so that's.
Well, I remember hearing the owners talk about after they started selling RVs and doing the financing, where the first time they started doing the financing, all of a sudden a check showed up at the dealership. It's like, what's this check for from the bank? Like, why are we getting a check? We just made our the money that we needed to on the sale. It covered our expenses, made our little profit. Everything was taken care of. And then all of a sudden, in comes this other check. It's like, wait a minute. And I remember David Durnell and Mike, the owners, talking about it. It's just like how surprised they were. It's like, well, we weren't counting on this. Well, let's just give it back to the customer. So that's what you're talking about. What do you call it?
We call it the financing discount.
Finance discount. Okay.
Finance discount, financing discount.
Very cool.
Yeah. And so that's part of why we can't do as much of the advertising for our specific prices, because you add our already low price with an additional good chunk off of it for the financing, it's just going to drop it down. Because again, you want to find someone that's doing the volume, because they don't need to make as much per unit. And then if you can use this as leverage and say, hey, I'm looking to finance, or if I finance through you, can I get a bigger discount? And then so we have, because we still get a lot of people that want to buy cash. Okay, they've saved up, they're ready to get their RV, they want to pay cash. So what we recommend, and this is what I tell cash buyers, is to get that discount if if the dealership is willing to give you a financing discount. Typically, there's a minimal amount of time that's necessary to have financed for. So, like for us, it's 12 months. So you just have to finance for 12 months. What you can do is do 10% down initially, and then on your first payment, you pay everything off except the next 11 months. And then those 11 months go by, the loan ends, chop right at 12 months, and you get, like the example earlier, say you bought like a $35,000 trailer, you got the $3,000 financing discount because you financed, you got it for $32,000. Okay, maybe you paid $200-$300 in interest over a year to save $3,000. So
you pay almost all of it off that very first payment. Then you just have the minimum payments. So extra couple $100 a month for 11 months. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Yeah, they're simple interest loans, so the more aggressive you are with them, you're paying towards principal a lot more aggressively. Right. So even for people that that can't do the entire payoff in a year, most of the loans are structured so that you can pay them off early. So you can double up payments. You want to stretch your term for as long as possible for the best interest rate, and then pay it as aggressively as you can. That's your best way to stop from ending upside down in your loan structure.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it also gives you the flexibility, like Dallas was saying, if something does come up, you can go a couple months with doing the lower minimum payment, and then just go back up when you get your job back, or you get whatever it is that you need to keep moving forward.
So I do want to explain, there is another kind of loan that has been pretty common this year, and you will see a lot in like furniture stores, even in a normal year. And those are the 0% APR loans. So anybody who's offering 0%, you're not going to get those financing reserves from. You can beat and holler and jump all you want.
Oh, okay. So they use that financing reserve to basically...
They're paying your interest up front.
Your interest.
Yeah. So a lot of times if you have, let's say, a 60 or 70 month loan, they're paying somewhere around 25 to 30% of the cost of the unit up front for you. So you won't be able to get any discount from somebody doing that. That's just a heads up, so you don't end up in a confused situation with somebody offering 0% APR.
Because, I mean, can you guys give us
basically the inverse?
Yeah.
We're paying them to finance our customer versus the other way around. Yep.
And rates and stuff, I mean, give me a kind of a range. I mean, it's a little different than it is a luxury purchase, right?
Right.
Luxury vehicle.
So depending on credit, extremely high credit scores could see rates as low as 5.5%. But I've seen them up to 10, 12% too. It's really going to depend on where you are with your credit score. I would say with the number of lenders we have something for everybody and we can get you financed. The goal being that I would tell you up front, no matter what your score was, be aggressive with your payoff. Okay. Because I don't want you to pay any more interest than you have to. Be aggressive with your payoff and try to get out of it quickly. Okay.
I have seen them a little bit lower. Again, if you're doing the longer term and you have excellent credit, they can get as low as like 5, really high up, like upper 4s. If you have excellent credit. But again, it is, it just depends. And then
no, that's helpful.
Pay aggressively.
No, I was just curious on that. And then what do you recommend as far as how much down payment should be made when they're starting? Is it a 20%, 10%, 15%?
Is if you get 10%, that's going to help a lot.
Yep.
Okay.
Obviously, anything more than that is gonna help as well. But the big thing with that is you're knocking your. If you do 10% up front, you can pay that extra 20-30% that you have after the first payment, and then start knocking off the interest further down.
Cool. And
if a dealer is working in your best interest, they're going to explain to you not to put more than that 10% down, because what will happen is you can knock yourself into a lower bracket of payments where you don't get as long of a term. And generally, if you have a shorter term, like an 8 to 10 year loan, you're going to have a higher payment than somebody in a 12 to 15 year range and a higher interest rate. So in your best interest and the customer's best interest, they should be explaining to you where's the sweet spot where I don't want to, if you can still, like Solomon said, don't consider it not being able to put it down towards it, right? It's a difference between a down payment and your first payment, right? Put down what they recommend so that they can finance the amount they need to get you the right length of term, and then pay aggressively on it starting from payment 1. That way you're not, because I've seen that happen where somebody pays too much, or they want to put too much down, or they just flat refuse and they want to put that down. And now they lose their financing discount, and they are, because of the shorter term and higher interest rate, now they've got a higher payment than they should have too. And that doesn't make any sense. So I would consider that my fault. If I let a customer do that to themselves, that's my fault, because we have to explain that to you and get you the right deal that's going to save you the most money and keep you the most flexible for the amount of time of the loan.
The other big thing with that is, real quick, is you can get it refinanced. After a year, so for ours, we only require you hold it for a year with us. So you will have to get that financing through the dealership for them to be able to give you that discount. But after a year, if you have a really good lender near you, you can get sometimes lower interest rates. And so after that year, you can refinance it with local credit union, refinance it with your local bank, and even get that dropped even lower, and maybe change the term depending on what you need. Maybe you need a longer term, maybe you don't. Maybe you're paying it really aggressively and they have really good rates. It depends on the lender on that side. What we're telling you is based off what we're able to get. But if you can refinance it later for better rates, do it.
Yeah, good. That's good. Do you guys, I forgot to ask this before, but when we were talking about trade-ins, and some people want to know what is the value of their used unit. And would you guys mind if I put up your information and then they can reach out directly to you and ask you for NADA pricing and things like that, or any help? And then even if they have real specific questions about financing or your particular credit situation, I'm going to pop that up here. So here's contact information. Dustin Bray is on the left, extension 133, D Bray, and Solomon, extension 149. S. Richardson. So yeah, thank you guys. We'll leave this up here for a few minutes. I love this picture. Reminds me of my dad. He took me out fishing and camping. We spent a couple of days out on a little pond and in a canoe. And we caught fish after fish, and one of the highlights of my childhood growing up. And hopefully, as you think about getting into camping, there's things like this that excite you, being able to spend quality time with your family, or whatever your goals are in camping. But I know you guys I commend you again for making a wise choice to explore this and figure out a RV that will work for you. So Very cool. The last thing I want to talk about is service. Well, I want to tie that into warranty stuff too, extended service contracts.
Mhm.
But I see a lot of people making the mistake not checking out service and service times and all those kind of things that are related. And I wanted to see what you guys think about that. And in fact, in just a second, we'll go see if we can. I pre-recorded a video with one of the owners, David, who's been helping out in service at RV Wholesalers the last couple of years. In fact, he even moved his office up there to make sure that was taken care of well. But I know the big question I have for you guys is, and we've been seeing this with some of our folks that have been watching these webinars, is how in the world, if they buy an RV in Alaska, are you guys going to take care of them or make sure that they are able to keep camping and don't have issues? And because there's going to be issues, obviously, right? It's a house that's bolted onto some wheels and rolls down the road. So how do you guys help them with that?
So the way that we do it, and this isn't typical, but what we have done, and really what David, our owner, along with his brother Mike, have done, is built a network of service providers that we trust to take care of our service and warranty issues all over the nation. Okay. That's through a lot of blood, sweat, and tears on their part, getting the people that they trust and making sure that they can rely on them to do the job, to take care of our customers. So a huge question that has arisen is, and we see this also in automotives, right? I know a ton of people here in Ohio that will look for vehicles from Texas, Arizona, Oklahoma, because they're cleaner, right? They're not going through the four seasons that we're going through in Ohio with the salt on the roads. So they want to buy that vehicle, but now where do they go for service? That, let's say it's a brand new vehicle and it has a warranty, but outside of taking it back to that dealership, there's no guarantee of service. That's very similar to the RV industry, okay? Even two Rockwood dealerships within 60 miles of each other might have no responsibility for dealing with a customer who has an issue, okay? The other issue that we run into is that RVs are meant almost exclusively for traveling outside of where you live. We buy them so that we can explore all the natural beauty that this country has to offer. So what good does having a great lifetime service warranty with my local dealer do me if I'm 5 states away and I can't even get it back to them to have it serviced? That does you no good. So that's pretty much all the time. I think you're not really
the
things that go wrong don't happen when you're sitting at home in your driveway in the middle of December and you don't have anything better to do anyway. That's not when it goes wrong. It goes wrong at the worst possible time, and that's when you need the service. So I would be that's one thing that I would probe for in depth when you're talking to a local dealer is, how do we get this resolved? Like, if there's an issue, what do we do? What are the procedures?
Yeah, what do you expect?
Right.
Time wise, like today, if I brought it in today,
how long
don't
would
be afraid to
it
ask questions. Just, I brought it in today. My refrigerator quit working. It might need replaced. How long would that take? And then just throw out some scenarios for them and make sure that you're comfortable with the answers you're getting. Let's go real quick to David up here, and I want you to meet him. He's one of the owners of RV Wholesalers.
Glad to help. I've kind of been serving people or helping people my entire life. It's kind of how we were raised, I guess you could say. To put other people first, take care of other people. So when we started the dealership, it was sort of a natural for me, especially if you look at my teaching background. I taught for 10 years. I've always enjoyed teaching people new things. I've always enjoyed helping people, both professionally, personally, etc. Taking care of kids and stuff was such a joy, such a pleasure. So when Mike and I opened up this dealership, it just kind of sort of wasn't even a choice. We're going to focus on the people that we sell to. We're going to take care of them. We're going to treat them like family. And again, that's just how we were raised. I remember we'd been selling for a few years, and we had the idea of putting a used unit on eBay, and it did really well. We put another one, and long story short, through the winter months, we had sold all of our used units. And in the spring, we thought, I wonder if people would buy a new unit. So we put a new unit on eBay, and a crazy thing happened. A guy from Iowa bought it. Put another one up. A guy from Texas bought it. And we thought, man, we've stumbled onto something here. And I never will forget my dad came in to check on us, see how we were doing, just to visit. And we were telling him how great this thing was, right? We're going to be able to sell RVs all across the U.S., it appears, through eBay. And I'll never forget, he just kind of looked at us and he said, you guys started selling because of service, right? You did service first? Yeah, of course, Dad. So service most important thing? Yeah. Well, how are you going to service people that aren't even in your state? And it was kind of a low moment, it sort of like sucked the wind out of us. And we kind of regrouped for a couple of days and thought about it, even prayed about it. And then the idea popped in our head, hey, what if we found someone in each person's hometown to take care of them? And fast forward 23 years later, that's our nationwide service network. And now we're able to sell to people all across the U.S., all across Canada, and take care of every single one of them. But I think one of the things we're most proud of is that we've never had a customer not get serviced anywhere in the U.S. or Canada. We've always been able to find someone to take care of them and someone to meet their needs, And
So that's funny because I can almost imagine the look on their faces from like
right.
that excited, like couldn't wait to tell him to like, oh no, like
Think about that.
as the smoke pours out, like
That was so they started in '97 and RV Wholesalers, and yeah, so they've been doing this quite a while. So I know that list has gotten to over 2,900, 2,918 or something the last I checked, worth of different providers that have been vetted and things out there. So that's pretty neat.
We're running out of push pins to show on the map where they're at. They're all overlapping and on each other.
Yeah. And that's the cool thing. I mean, I noticed there was one time he was telling about a family down in Florida at one of the RV parks that Disney has, and the guy called, was like in hysterics, like, oh no. And water was pouring through their air conditioner. And that's what they did. They didn't have to, they had a vetted HVAC guy that could work on RVs come out within 20 minutes and bolt down the AC that had, somehow moved, on his trip down there for his first trip. And they didn't have to go all the way back to New Hampshire, I think it was, where they were from, and get that worked on. And so it makes a lot of sense. I'm glad they figured that one out. So good thing we have fathers to ask good questions, right?
There's one thing I would recommend for all of our customers, though, too, is that even for our extensive RV network, there are places in this country still that we may not have explored yet, but say Yellowstone National Park or basically any of our larger national parks or true wilderness areas where if you're off-gridding or you're in the middle of the national park, you're going to be a long way from somebody regardless, okay? So one of the things that I do recommend for our customers is take some time, if you're planning on being in these more wilderness and remote areas, to familiarize yourself with your unit and what are the typical things that can happen. Okay. You don't have to be some supreme handyman to take care of a lot of the small issues, but having a little bit of research just to make sure you have the tools and some parts that you might need should those things arise. Because the last thing you want is a busted propane line or fitting to ruin a 2-week trip when you're 70 or 80 miles from the closest town. So for those true off-roaders, those real off-grid campers, of which those are my folks. I try to get them a good idea of what are the things that you should be carrying with you as part of it, right? I think a lot of people think of RVing when they're going on these trips as we need, our clothes and our plates and all our things for it, like our enjoyment of the outdoors. But there are things you need to take along with you to ensure that the trip doesn't get spoiled by a small service issue, right?
That's cool. That's a good lead-in. There was there's a big magazine called Home Handyman, and it's a DIY kind of organization. And they actually reached out to me last week and said, "Hey, we have a editor in Columbus, Ohio. We want to bring him out, and we want him to get familiar with some of these things, like you were saying, that we can write about and help millions of people out there be able to understand and fix the little things and save some headaches.
And for most customers too, a lot of those smaller issues are never going to be covered under a service, like under a warranty after maybe a year anyway. So you're 4 or 5 years in, it's something you'd have to pay out of pocket for. It would be better to, if you've just got an extra, what are they called? The hoses, right? The extra hose kit for your dump off. All those things that you might need, I would recommend carrying extra, making sure that your trip's not going to be interrupted by something small and avoidable, right? Those are the things that I recommend looking at.
Especially with the off-road, like off-roading and kind of boondocking it.
Yep.
If you're going to be in like more of a standardized RV park or big RV areas like that, it's not going to be as necessary. And if you're with a lot of people, oftentimes your neighbors are going to help you out too. They've been doing it for a while. It's a very communal activity. They love, people love to help each other out with issues like this, especially if you're a new camper. Don't worry about it. Like if you're camping at bigger parks, there'll be more experienced people there. That way, if you do have big questions, like, how do I hook up my sewer hose again? Like, I forgot. It's been a couple months since I got it. Like, they'll help you.
Yeah, so. It's really cool. And community, I learned that this summer quite a few times. Forgot to fill one of my propane tanks, so thankfully my neighbor had an extra one, brought it over. He hooked it all up for me and everything. I was like, turned around and my stove was working. So good times. Speaking of warranty, want to make sure we touch real quickly on this. There's two main types of extended service contracts or extended warranties. What are those two types, and what do you recommend? I know a lot of times we think when don't always say no to the warranty. I've been asked I don't know how many times checking out the last week for Christmas shopping, and it's like no thanks. But for this one, you might want to definitely consider it. Which one do you guys think?
Go ahead, Solomon.
I'm going to quick. I know we don't want to take too much more of your guys' time. I know you guys have a few questions to hit too. So just real quick, there's two main types that we've seen. There's a third one that's starting to become more popular, but we kind of hit on that a little bit earlier. So the main two are stated, and then which is going to list all the things that it covers, but excluding anything else that's not mentioned. So it's going to list the few things it covers in there, which look nice, right? You see this big list of 20 or 30 items. I'm like, wow, this covers a lot, until you do something strange, like you hit a curve and then something happens to your tire, or, you just have one little thing that's off from the wording of it and they don't pay out. And I've heard a lot of stories of people I've talked to with these, like, yes, they're cheaper, but they don't cover as much, and they're a lot more stringent on what they do cover.
And that's the key. You really want to make sure. I mean, the purpose of having one is finding a company that will pay the claims, and it's not this little game of, that's not covered and that's not covered. And so what's the one that does better as far as the coverage and really covering you? What type is that?
Yeah, so you've got the stated, and then the other one,
exclusionary.
I'm blanking on the name. Yeah, exclusionary. So that's going to list a few things it doesn't cover, and then everything else is covered. So it's the opposite. You've got your list of the 20 things that aren't covered that are going to be your basic maintenance stuff.
From brake pads to light bulbs to all that stuff too.
Just your simple wear and tear kind of items, and then anything else is covered. And then there's even different levels of that you can get. So, and then those plans are they can be really tailored to how you're using the RV, right? Because if you're not driving around a lot, if you're mostly just living in it, you're driving it a couple times here or there, it's more of a semi-permanent situation, then you're probably not going to need some of the same coverage that someone who's going to be taking their travel trailer all over the U.S., or someone with a motorhome that's traveling all over, or cross country, retiring, just getting out, seeing everything that they've wanted to see. They're going to want different levels of coverage because you're putting different strain on the vehicle. So there's a few different types even within it, and then the one to really watch out for is the forever plan.
Oh yeah, I mean, the first time I saw that warranty forever, or they have different names for it. But the first time I saw it was about 4 years ago. I was walking around at a dealers only convention, and when I noticed that they were trying to sell me on the idea that, hey, your dealership should buy into this program because you can offer them warranty forever, and they are forced to come in every year to get an inspection, and during that time they're going to average spend $900 on service items that you can bill them for, and so you're going to make money each year from your customers. I was like, red flag, red flag.
Yeah, well, especially now with how high the prices are that people are charging on just normal RVs. They're going to start charging premium for service, especially when it's backed up. You have one dealership that's backed up 3 months in service. You still have to get it checked.
Yeah.
There's just a lot. So you want a plan that's going to cover you. And
really check out the plans. I know one we've had good luck with is been Protective. I mean, that's a solid name. It's been around for dozens of years, and make sure you check out the ratings on it. It's like an insurance company, so there's insurance ratings or for these companies. And you can buy them even for your used RVs. And the cool thing is they transfer if you sell your RV, so it adds value. They transfer to the new owner. So I mean, it's money well spent. It can be rolled into your loan, which is nice too.
Yeah, the financing, which is great.
One thing really quick to touch on before we get out of here on that one is when you're looking at it goes back to our out the door pricing and hidden fees and all that too, is that the way that the warranty should be explained to you is they're never forced on you. They're always optional. Okay. Extended warranty is always optional. You shouldn't pay more for an extended warranty unless you've asked for it. Additionally, they should be given to you. We call it a la carte. So in other words, you pick the options that make the most sense for you. A great comprehensive coverage option might be presented to you, but let's say you have a park model that is never going to move from the lot, and they're giving you tire and wheel coverage and transportation insurance or extended warranty on moving parts for going down the road. That doesn't make any sense. Why would you need that? You're paying for a service you're not going to require. So be careful with that too. Okay. Ask about the extended warranties and how they're broken down so that you can see the ones that are best suited for your needs.
Yep. And sometimes people will try to charge the price for one for the other.
Yep.
So see if they have both the stated and exclusionary. Sometimes they try to jack up the stated price to the exclusionary, even though it covers less.
So stated is the one to watch out for. Exclusionary. Okay.
It's great.
I'm going to put your contact information up here at the end, again, if you don't mind, guys. And we will, that way, if they have questions and want to get into more details on these things or anything really, want to be able to do that. I know one thing the reason I went to the factories, I really wanted to answer this question for myself. And that was, with this kind of demand that's happening, is the quality going down? So we actually took cameras. I don't have time to show videos and stuff, but we took cameras and went into at least 3 or 4 of the factories. They all said we could come in, which was really cool. They let us come in unannounced to all their people, and we just went in and made some really cool film capturing the moment. But what I noticed is that all the inspections were still in place. They still did all their quality checks. They were still going through at the same pace they always have the last 10 years. The one thing they haven't been able to do is there's only limited workforce, so they haven't been able to add like third shift that works all night and cranks out more. So what's happening is the queue line is just getting longer and longer. And so thankfully, people like you guys that buy a lot of RVs from them have little spots in that queue. So every month you're getting a certain amount. And when people order, they don't have to wait 5 months. They may only have to wait, 12 weeks or whatever it is to be able to get the exact RV custom ordered that they want. And so that was nice to know that I didn't see any quality issues. The holdup has been, just certain items like they may build the whole RV and then have to wait for a refrigerator. So they'll park it. So they have a shortage of spaces to park these RVs as they're waiting on the last item. But that's been the only issue that's kind of been slowing things down there. But so that was good to know. So as a thank you guys for watching and sticking with us to the end here. If there's anybody that's just now starting to figure out exactly what RV you want. The owner said that we could give a little $500 voucher discount for delivery. So for anybody that ends up putting a deposit, which is like $1,000 down on their new RV that they're getting ready to buy, and the next day that you guys give them a $500 delivery credit. So if they're in Ohio, they get free delivery, but anywhere else they can use this $500 credit. So that was kind of cool. So all you have to do to get that is write to either one of these guys, either S. Richardson or D. Bray, and just put in the subject, just put 500, and they'll know what we're talking about, right, guys? And make sure you take care of these guys with a $500 credit towards delivery. These are for new people that are just wanting to find an RV. So hopefully that helps. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. And if you have more questions, reach out to these guys. And again, I appreciate Solomon and Dustin taking time to join us. I know it's a busy day on the phones, and you guys are here all day, right? Till what, 5 or so Eastern time?
Yeah, till 5.
Yeah, so they can reach out even today and get more questions answered. So thanks for that was really helpful stuff. Learned a lot, so appreciate it. All right, take care, guys, and happy camping soon.